Hello, Mr. Wan. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for coming in today.
Committee of two.
Obviously, we're a couple holes shy of a wiffle ball, so we're going to have to wait until we get at least two more members. One has definitely told me he will not be here, and another is ill and will unlikely to be here, which would leave us a margin of one. Mr. Wan is here. Mr. Winston is here. So as soon as we get a fourth, we'll get underway. We have no presentations today, so when we get a fourth, let's not be afraid to be efficient today. All right, Mr. Lewis has joined us, so we have a quorum. Ms. Boone will be walking in momentarily. We're going to be down a couple of members. So it is 10 o'clock. This is the regularly scheduled September 13th meeting of the Atlanta City Council City Utilities Committee. I'm Howard Shook, chair of the committee. I have already introduced the members who are present. Now that the meeting is called to order and the members introduced, I will make a motion to adopt the agenda with the addition of not one, not two, but three walk-in papers, which all have to do with extending emergency, pickup services for yard waste, etc. So is there a second to that?
I thought Alex already said what you did.
Mr. Chair, this is the motion to amend the agenda.
All right, I'll make a motion to formally amend with the addition of the three mentioned papers. Is there a second? Ms. Lewis has made the proper second. Let's open the vote.
The vote is closed.
All right, agenda stands as amended. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting.
Second.
There's been a second by... I'll second that motion.
The vote is open.
I'm trying to go too fast here.
The vote is closed.
All right, agenda is adopted as amended. I will now make a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting. All right, we have a second by Mr. Winston. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the minutes of the prior meeting stand adopted. That takes us to public comment. And who do we have? Brother Muhammad, you're up, followed by Mr. Shakir.
I am that I am. And I command our indigenous, committed, antiquity ancestors to teach my soul consciousness each and every day. I am that I am. Negas, King of Kings. I'm not a believer in the Roman Catholic Church religion, Christianity. In your Bible, the 66 book from Genesis to Revelation, not one person was born from a woman's womb. I come here to talk about public utilities, people living on the street. I recognize in the general items you have, it feels that watershed management got about $50 million they want to make sure be available to them to continue their work. But I am thankful for that, but I am also concerned about we can come with all these resources to help people in the department, but let the people that live on the street, who some of them is on the ventilation, laying down and keep warm. But you remember Manny Jackson, Miss Boone? I came out of Georgia State. Prior to that, in 75, I was out of the Navy. Went to college, supported Mr. Maynard. And then I realized we were working hard to do things for the people that looked like the committed people. Because we weren't having it in Georgia. Not the city, Mr. Winston, Miss Boone, Mr. Shook. But here you got today a problem with people that look like myself not getting support. And I called on Miss Keisha last fall. What we said? A city. Let's make sure Atlanta is a place everyone can call home. What about them dark peoples on the street? Miss Keisha, you are a sorority sister. I saw you and all your members there speaking about the importance of being Delta Sigma Delta sorority. You have a purpose, is to provide assistance and support through established programs in local communities throughout the world. You could go be concerned about Germany, Bermuda, Virgin Islands, Okinawa, Canada, China, and other places. But what about the people that your mother gave birth to you, Leah, right here in Georgia, right here in the city of Atlanta? You was there in the White House. You all said with your symbolism. Where did the symbolism come from? Your ancient people, with your with your hand up. Why did you have to take on the Greek and the Roman identity? They suppressed your people, the majority, to have knowledge of what we call the first language, symbolism. So I ask you to ask Mr. Biden, get some money together to come to Atlanta, and let's help this city get the peoples off the street. And you ones that look like me, and Mr. Shook, y'all are being progressive in the 21st century. Because I see how well you take care of your peoples in Ukraine. And anywhere else there are Caucasians that need help. That's a wonderful thing. But what about your voice? What about your voice? I greet you as I did not greet you. Assalamu alaikum, Mayor Metro Hotel, assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Brother Muhammad. Mr. Shakir. There he is.
Ron Shakir, Southwest Atlanta. God bless America when she's right and have mercy on her when she's wrong. It has been a value of free speech in this country unlike no other. At this council, free speech and participation in these meetings have been rolled back by newcomers and allowed by the veterans, probably with glee and happiness. But your names are marking the fact that Mr. Shook said there's going to be 3 walk-in papers coming in here today, but the public would not be able to engage them, unknowingly what they are. We used to be able to stand right there when the design was a little different here, before a walk-in paper, before a vote was taken, after every presentation, in the beginning of the meeting, and at the end of the meeting. It's been rolled back. In our names that's on those pallets, on those signs in front of you, in front of us, Miss Boone. Boone has a name in this city as a freedom fighter, but the free speech is being taken away, and your names are being added to it, whether Juan care about it or whether Shook care about it. Stop it, and let's be progressive and not regressive. I was down at the Martin Luther King International Day this Saturday. A tape of Martin Luther King was playing, and it was saying, we won't go back. Let's not go back. There used to be a time when black folks move in the neighborhoods, white folks move out. Now white folks are moving in the neighborhood, black folks are being ran out. We're not going back. You may vote on it, you may feel good about it today, but it's not going to last. The fact that Maynard Jackson, a courageous man, come from Atlanta Public Schools, Morehouse, and went to some college up north, Boston College, what have you. He stood up for Atlanta. He loved Atlanta. He loved black folks in this town, that he lived in neighborhoods in this town that's been erased. He loved white communities and white people in this town. He loved everybody, but he worked and put the money and the efforts to what needed to be. The fact is that the NPU that Maynard Jackson established is being challenged on your watch. And you can Juan and Shook can sit by and let it happen. And Miss Boone can change her name. Can change her name if she want to. But black families stood up to support Maynard Jackson for these NPU meetings, that every issue could be addressed by 24 districts in this city. And now you want to leave our streets to be addressed by people who come in to make designs and have papers that come in here, that we don't have a chance to be able to address them. Streets are being redesigned. Now you to put billions of dollars in money into a Beltline, and now you want to put the stitch. I understand that, but the people that was here before wasn't here and got here, you didn't have a quorum. We waited for them.
Mr. Shakir, we appreciate your passion. Your microphone's been turned off. Mr. Shakir, perhaps you need to step outside for a minute and collect yourself.
That you address for everybody else from here. Do that. Can you do that?
Mr. Shakir, you're going to be put in timeout if you don't calm down and take your seat.
Say it again.
You're going to go into timeout if you don't take your seat, sir, and let the meeting.
You don't put me in timeout. The fact is, you're going to treat me fair. want to, but you're going to treat me fairly up in here. You know why? Because we're going to fight for justice, freedom, and equality.
Mr. Secure, I'm not going to throw you out of this meeting.
Okay, then. Well, I would like to have an extension of 30 seconds. Can you give me that, sir?
No, sir. You've
Okay, that's
already
fine.
taken up quite a bit of our time.
I will say this right here. Although you may put legislation that stop me from being able to talk at the end of the meeting, but I'm telling you, we will continue to stand up and hope that our voices will continue to be heard and that you would not take MPU out of the decision of the
Supposed to be
concerns
in
of the
all the
city of
time.
Atlanta.
Okay.
There's names who have stood up for justice, and Mayor Jackson is one of them. And I would hope that you don't cower from expediency of turning our streets over to decisions that we not have nothing to do about.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Under communications, we have 22C5151. This is communication from members Shook, Norwood, Westmoreland, reappointing Mr. Earl Young to serve as a member of the Water and Sewer Appeals Board. This appointment is for a term of 3 years to begin retroactively on October 1st of 2021 and expire September 30th of 2024. And if I failed to mention it, we've been joined by Ms. Andrea Boone. And we're being asked to hold this until the next meeting, and so I'll make that motion. Second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, communication has been put on hold. We'll take it up at the next meeting. That takes us to our consent agenda. And could you please assign our two items? These are the first.
22-0-1719, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2023 wastewater and wastewater renewal extension fund budget in the amount of $2,500,000.00 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the Program Management Services Team Project and for other purposes. 22-0-1720, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2023 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $8,000,000.00 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the Capital Improvement Architectural and Engineering Project. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the Fund Department organization and account number listed and for other purposes.
All right, those items will come back to us at our next sitting. That takes us to regular agenda, Section H. First ordinance is 22-0-1683. This is an ordinance by Utilities Committee to ratify services rendered in connection with cooperative purchasing agreement, which is listed here, cellular and wireline router services with AT&T Mobility National Accounts, utilizing the Georgia Technology Authority contract, number of which is indicated, beginning July 1 of 2022 through the execution of the First Amendment to the agreement to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment and to extend the term of the agreement retroactively effective from July 1 of this year through June 30th of 2024 with 3 one-year renewal options on behalf of Watershed in an amount not to exceed $180,000 and to add Atlanta Information Management as an authorized user in an amount not to exceed $16,497.40. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from, etc. Mr. Hill.
Of Watershed Management. Basically, this legislation provides an appropriate procurement mechanism for the Office of Watershed Protection to acquire and pay for wireless data transmission services for remote monitoring stations. Just to give some background, the Office of Watershed Management Protection maintains approximately 285 remote monitoring stations to fulfill 3 primary deliverables: contractual obligations, NPDES reporting, and the consent order. The current standardized wireless hardware is used by the Department of Watershed Management's remote monitoring program work on a radio frequency and throughout a path that is a proprietary configuration unique to AT&T. The remote monitoring stations include contractual obligations for interjurisdictional wholesale water flow monitoring stations, or NPDS required river temperature monitors, consent order, wastewater, hydraulic model, sewer capacity certification, CSO rainfall monitoring, and ancillary remote cameras and special monitoring projects. This is a cooperative agreement through the Georgia Technology Authority, and the total cost for the department is $180,000 with $90,000 for each fiscal year. And AIM has been added as an additional user agency for coverage, degradation, and telework efforts for employees, ATL 26, and any future needs of public safety connectivity for police and fire, and vehicles and apparatus. Approval of this funding request will allow the Department of Watershed Management to continue maintaining the 285 remote monitoring stations to meet the requirements of contractual obligations, the NPDS permit and monitoring to meet the requirements of the consent decree.
Mr. Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hill, I don't have an issue with the scope of the project. It's more about the form. So it looks to me that this was originally a 3-year contract with 3 one-year renewal options. And what this paper does is, rather than just exercising one of the 1-year renewal options, we're extending it for 2 years and then tacking on the 3 1 years. First time I've seen this, so I'm curious as to why we're pursuing this path versus just a regular option renewal.
Basically, it was just for the ease of moving forward. I mean, this is proprietary property that we're using with AT&T, and we're just wanting to make sure we keep it consistent on that, and then we didn't want to budget beyond the 2 years.
I think the renewal options are there for the continuity purpose. I mean, I think it's unusual for us to extend an underlying contract term before we even started exercising the renewal options. I'm going to support this reluctantly, but again, I see the CPO out there. This was originally a 6-year contract that we're now just kind of adding 2 years because it's convenient. I don't know that that's particularly a smart approach.
CM1, Makita Browning, Commissioner. My understanding is we're being compliant with the terms of the state contract, and that is what the terms that are being, I guess the elongation of it is being compliant with what the state is wanting to do with the contract.
Wait, so this is to match the cooperative purchasing, whatever the
their terms under the Georgia Tech?
Georgia
Cooperative agreement. They're extending it, so we're complying with that, with the terms.
All right. Again, I'll back off of this, but I see J.D. out there. I mean, this is another example of I understand. So I'll stand down. Thanks.
All right, Mr. Lewis.
Well, I don't understand. I'm glad you asked those questions, Councilmember Wan, because you opened up my eyes to some stuff. And I would like the new procurement person to come up and explain the stuff to us, what's going on, because I'm nervous in 2 years they're going to come and do the same thing and try to extend it again. I like seeing open, fair processes when contracts come up.
Jadeep Majumdar, Chief Procurement Officer. I think from what I understand is this is part of a cooperative agreement, and as part of the cooperative agreement, we try to mirror all the terms and conditions that are there with, I think this is state of Georgia.
Yes.
So having said that, do we have options to pursue a different route? Absolutely, yes. So give me some time, let me look at this and get back to you with a concrete answer.
And with you asking for time, I think we need to, I make a motion to hold this.
Well, let's hope that they can get their heads together and talk this over, and then we can bring it up before the meeting ends, and if we're comfortable, we'll move forward. If we're not, we can...
I don't want to rush it, because I feel like we're mirroring some just because, from what you just explained to me, we're just doing this because the state is doing it?
Yeah, so generally what happens is in cooperative agreement, we try to mirror the same terms and condition that the anchor account is. In this case, the anchor account is the state of Georgia account. So, we have to match those terms and conditions. Any waiver from that, we have to peel that out and then do a separate one with the provider.
But you think you need an hour to look at this or 2 weeks to look at this?
Give me some time because, maybe an hour may not be that much. Give me a week and then we'll get back to you on that.
Which is why I make a motion to hold this paper.
Let's do this, because I think an important question is the one the Commissioner is perhaps ready to answer, which is what would be the consequences of the hold be given these are permitting requirements?
Yes, Deputy Commissioner Hill noted the remote monitoring stations are really needed for compliance with our consent decrees and other matters with related to operations, and so will it put us at jeopardy of being without service for a period?
It could,
Yeah.
and also going to another provider, because we have used the same system for our whole process since we started remote monitoring, will require us to make a major investment of millions to actually change out all the proprietary systems that were put in at the time when the remote monitoring program began. This has been a consistent process for
decades. We've had those remote monitoring.
I know, and then part of my issue is that we just doing business as usual, especially when our new procurement folks, new mayor, the biggest transformation on city council we've seen in the city of Atlanta. This business as usual for him to say between an hour and a week is what he's requesting.
What I would ask is if, we'd be allowed to pursue with these 2 years, and we work with Department of Procurement and craft a separate procurement that can be competitive and under the city's umbrella.
And I'm going to take suggestions from procurement, but he said he need an hour to a week to look at it. So I'm going to take whatever suggestions we bring in.
No, in fact, we wanted to, get together and come up with a solid strategy. And, like Ms. Browning said, we will definitely address this somehow, and we'll get back to you with a concrete answer next time. When I say next time means definitely, yeah.
When is next time?
Next session.
Next session.
So 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yes.
All right, well, so Mr. Lewis has made a motion to hold for 2 weeks. Now, I know there's more questions and comments to come, but is there a second?
I can withhold my
Okay, he's going to withdraw that. Mr. Wan.
My suggestion is we put this to the side and see if we can find anything by the end of the meeting. Worst case scenario is let's just exercise one of the renewal options. You'll have your continuity. We still have 2 more one-year renewal options. You can still have it for 3 years. You might be able to get us an answer by the end of the meeting, or you might be able to get us an answer by Monday. So I'd rather not. This is already retroactive, so I would say let's not wait another cycle because there are multiple paths we can take now. So let's put it to. My suggestion is just let's put it to the side and hopefully get an answer by the end of the meeting.
End of the meeting or at latest Monday? Would that be?
As an alternative, I suggest we at least consider sending it forward, to buy a week's time. And here's why. There are times when it's absolutely appropriate to stand up firm and strong for the correct process, leave no stone unturned, answer all questions, have all concerns completely discussed and mollified. This is a consent decree. I'm the only one here who knows what that is. I mean, that's the third rail. It's been so long. I hate work sessions, but we probably need a scared straight reminder about the federal consent order that we're under. And so that's what concerns me. I don't want to hold up progress here because of a formatting issue, but I will say this. Look, y'all have kind of outsmarted yourselves here, and this is the result of it. There was no reason to have done this differently that I can see. But y'all can step back and try to sort this out. If you can't, we'll take it from there. All right? So with that, well, actually, Commissioner, you're up next. 22-0-1684, this is an ordinance by Utilities authorizing the CFO to amend the FY 2022 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund and Series 2021 Water and Wastewater Commercial Paper Notes budget in the amount of $21,310,000 to transfer funds from the watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the Butler Street Trunk Relief System Improvements Project and for other purposes. Commissioner.
Good morning, Chairman Shook, members of CUC, Makita Browning, Commissioner, Department of Watershed Management. Purpose of this legislation is to appropriate funds for the Butler Street Trunk Relief Sewer System Improvements Project. This is a consent decree and capacity relief project that will continue efforts to upgrade the city's trunks and outfall sewers pursuant to our FECD. The work will remedy defects observed during the city's sewer system evaluation survey, reduce the amount of extraneous flows, I&I, entering the system, eliminate sewer overflows, and add much-needed system capacity to accommodate future growth. The defined scope of work will take place within the Clear Creek Combined Sewer Subbasin of Peachtree Creek and will consist of upgrades to approximately 11,639 linear feet of a trunk or outfall sewer, with replacement pipe sizes ranging from 12 inches to 84 inches, utilizing various proven traditional and trenchless technologies to complete the necessary upgrades. Subject to your questions, this completes my overview.
Motion to approve by Mr. Wan, second by Lewis. I do have a request. In lieu of a work session, I'm sorry I even mentioned that possibility. I would ask you to collaborate with law and to distribute to us by Monday's meeting a brief on what the consent decree is, what the city agreed to do, the powers that the federal judge maintains over us, how close we came to being put in receivership at the beginning of all this, because I think that would be good. I mean, and y'all can read copies of the consent decree. There's consent decree 1, consent decree 2, that they're both about like that. But if you could kind of get us refreshed on that, I think that would be good. So there's been a motion made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. Next is 22-0-1685. This is an ordinance by Utilities authorizing the CFO to amend the 2023 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $4,212,440 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the North Fork Storage Tank and Pump Station project and for other purposes. Now, it's my understanding that we have not received an IPRO.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. Number 11 is the companion paper. Item 11.
Okay, let me sound that one. 22R-4268, resolution by Utilities authorizing mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for the number indicated, North Fork Peachtree Creek Storage Tank and Pump Station with Ruby Collins, Inc., on behalf of Watershed for a term to commence from the date of notice to proceed is issued for a period of 1,034 calendar days for substantial completion and 1,095 calendar days for final completion in an amount not to exceed $145,212,440, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, etc. So that's the associated money paper. And so we do not have IPROs, and so hopefully we'll maintain our custom here of holding the paper here until we get that important report in. So I'll make a motion to hold both items. Second by Winston. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Both items are held. That takes us to 22-0-1714, an ordinance by Mr. Amos to amend the Atlanta City Code, the section entitled Riparian Buffer Requirements, to follow the technical panel to approve encroachments for certain multifamily residential developments, to make drafting amendments, and for other purposes. And who's presenting?
Good morning. I'm Barry Amos with Watershed. What you have before you is, as you said, an amendment to the existing riparian buffer requirements. Brief history: in 2001, the city adopted the riparian buffer ordinance requirements. That, paraphrasing things, the ordinance basically has divided all developments into two classes of development. One was single-family residential, and the other, everything else. Single-family, the ordinance provided criteria under which a request for authorized buffer encroachments must be met and to be evaluated. The ordinance was the criteria is different between the two classes. The single-family development, most single-family developments are able to meet the criteria that's established in the ordinance. Non-single-family developments are, the criteria is very restrictive, and most non-single-family residential developments are unable to meet that criteria. Most of the affordable housing developments, however, are not single-family development. They are multifamily. Therefore, they fall into the other category and are not, do not have that option to seek a buffer, authorized buffer encroachment. The proposed ordinance in front of you provides an alternative for multifamily developments to be evaluated for an authorized encroachment. It establishes criteria that will be used for the multifamily development, and it's not as generous as a single family, but it is not as restrictive as it is now. It does allow consideration if the encroachment is within the outermost 25 feet of the stream buffer. As you're aware, the city has a minimum 75-foot buffer. So first 25 is possible. It's got to be designed still to minimize the impact on the buffer. It has to meet higher mitigation standards, 50% more than the minimum requirement. It doesn't change any of the procedures that are in place as far as public notice, all the reviews, etc. It's still, all that is still in place. There are some other changes in that proposed ordinance. The ordinance has been amended several times since 2001. Some of those amendments did not carry through all the references as to who does what. Ordinances changed from the commissioner to the technical panel being responsible for that, and we're trying to clean that part of the ordinance up at the same time. If anyone has any questions or needs any additional information.
All right, so let me, just so that I understand what this paper does, it sounds to me like it's doing two things. First, it's changing the authority and the decision-making authorizer from the commissioner to a technical panel.
That is in the ordinance, yes, but that has already been changed in previous amendments.
Okay, so this brings it in line with previous legislative actions.
That is correct.
Those actions also set forth what that technical panel composition is as well.
That is
right?
correct.
Okay. The second piece you said is it changes the requirements or qualifications in terms of the buffer requirements, and you're saying that it relaxes it somewhat.
Somewhat.
and it's just relaxing it for multifamily.
That is correct.
So I'm curious as to the genesis of this legislation. Was it who are the proponents in driving this recommended change?
It is being done because of, as I say, because multifamily is not single family, falls under the quote other development restrictions. And recently I was out with one of your colleagues, Councilman Amos. Mm-hmm. He and I met out on site and with a project that was very good project. Where the neighborhood, everyone was supporting that project, but because of the stream buffer requirements, it wasn't able to move forward. And based on that, as well as, there are other multifamily projects that it would also allow to proceed. And that also, by the way, was an affordable housing project. So it just opens it up a little bit more without giving them the same rights as a single-family resident has.
Okay. So that makes me nervous. I'll be honest with you. When we're talking about relaxing a stream buffer variance requirement that was put in place for a very specific reason for the benefit of a couple of developments that are on the table, I feel like that's the tail wagging the dog a little bit. So I'll
excuse me, if may.
Yeah,
not really. As it's not necessarily the tail wagging the dog, but it's trying to bring the relationship between stream buffers and protecting the stream buffer, trying to achieve a better balance between what is restricted. We're proposing to increase the mitigation by 50%. So they're not getting in. There is a caveat or a additional requirement that is being over and above what is normally required.
So right now, the only other option would be to seek a waiver to the requirement, right? And could that be achieved and granted project by project?
I don't believe there's been a waiver. There may have been one that has happened.
But it can, right? Is there anything that precludes
Anything is possible. Never say never.
Okay. All right, I'll mull on this.
It's not something that has happened very often, if at all.
I understand. I appreciate that context. I just wonder if the surgical approach, the surgical knife approach to worthy projects that have adequate mitigation strategies is better than relaxing the entire playbook for everybody that, on a... Yeah, that's my question there.
I understand that, and it certainly is a very valid question, very valid concern. The buffer committee technical panel does not grant these, for lack of a better term, nilly-willy, doing an old Southern term, but it's, there is a very rigorous review process that's done, and it's not automatic.
To me, this also sounds like is this something we should be doing all over, or is this just a one-off?
Oh, this applies to any multifamily project.
Which is why I'm a little nervous with the lightening of restrictions. I like a lot of the things that the previous councils have done with making sure that our environment was strong. So we're trying to lighten these restrictions. Ms. Browning, how do you feel about some of this stuff? Because I'm having a lot of encroachment issues in my district.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Councilman Lewis. So we're seeing more applications for multifamily developments that encroach within that 25-foot threshold, and they're meaningful for the community. There's several council members that have spoken with us about it. Applicants have spoken with us about it, and so we think this is a fair balance for some developments, especially those that are affordable housing, for them to still go forth.
So thank you for explaining that to me, because now I'm a little bit more nervous, right? Because I'm thinking about the flooding that comes after this happens because we didn't do the research.
Absolutely. We're tasked with being stewards of the environment, so this is something we've thought about very thoughtfully. And again, you've got 25-foot, 50-foot, 75-foot next threshold. This is just that first threshold that we're allowing a minor encroachment.
That they're asking, not we're allowing, that they're asking that we allow. That developers are asking that the city council allows.
They're seeking approval to encroach within that first 25-foot.
Yeah, and that would be a big change in the city of Atlanta, because I'm just thinking about the flooding in my district. I grew up there. I lived there 30 years. It didn't happen before all of the ultra development started happening.
One thing to keep in mind is we're talking about within the floodplain. And so not sure if all of the flooding that's occurring within your district is within the certified floodplain. But what we are seeing is there's several applications, more and more, that are coming in, and they're not able to meet the, and so it's putting a block on those types of developments.
And I don't see it as a block. I see it as like the rules. The rules are the rules. And so we have a few developers who want to change those rules that we've already laid out. Because I'm concerned about our environment. And
we as well, but I think as we began to see more and more applications come in, that's the reason why we kind of took a step back and said, let us think about it from a policy perspective. Would this be permissible, and would it be an adverse impact on the environment? And we felt that within the first 25 foot that would be okay. It wouldn't be a detriment for them to encroach within that.
It wouldn't be a detriment, but it adjusted.
We didn't think it would pose any kind of significant harm or risk.
But it poses some?
There's always potential. You can't predict what will happen.
I just want to protect. I want to make sure we protect folks
Absolutely.
in affordable housing that we're about to build with encroachments, because these encroachment issues, as you know, I keep getting a lot of calls about these and about the city cleaning them. And I'm thinking about maintenance of the stuff once we have one developer come in and build something, then sell it. So I'm just thinking about like the long run, not just one person making something this time.
As Director Amos has pointed out, we will look to allow it within the first 25 foot, but there's still mitigation measures that they still have to put in place for further protection of that development.
Who would hold them accountable? Which department?
So it's watershed management, and the plans would have to go through our technical panel.
So would your department expand to do this? Because I know the city of Atlanta, man, we're doing as much as we can with everybody we got, right? And people are already stretching themselves. So are you planning to expand your department to make sure that we watch folks, developers, as they do this new development on this, and give them 25 more feet?
So as they go through the construction phase, yes, we do conduct inspections.
So watershed is going to expand for it?
We already have a team that does inspections during construction. That's a part of our process.
And I'm only asking about the expansion because the development, we have a lot of development going on in the city of Atlanta. And unless you're saying that you have, because I'm getting calls about folks, you have the capacity to do all these developments with no expansion in your department?
We have an existing team with existing resources, and that's all they do, is they inspect new development and make sure that they're being compliant with city's standards.
I just want to know, who should I hold accountable if we see this happening and no one's watching them and we get more floods on Cleveland Avenue and Metropolitan?
You should hold me accountable as the commissioner.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. I too am slightly triggered by this ordinance, but I must say that I've worked closely with Commissioner Browning on some projects in my district that are kind of the poster child for this type of impact or potential impact on the environment. I'm a little bit curious about what the current waiver process. I know we touched on that, where there is an instance where someone would be able to get a waiver for a development that encroaches on this. So how much is this different from that process?
There is no difference. If you apply for a authorized buffer encroachment, you do not meet the ordinance requirements, you are denied. And I think our attorney can go from there.
Mr. Chair, Robert Moses, Department of Law. So at the moment, if you wanted to do this, the waiver process would be an ordinance would need to be passed to waive the city code, and that would need to be done on a case-by-case basis. The reason why we try to avoid doing that is because this particular ordinance, like many watershed ordinances, is part of a series of model ordinances from the Metropolitan Water District, and we try to keep to those model ordinances as best we can, and waivers are frowned upon. So if we can amend the code in some way to allow the development to proceed in a more general fashion rather than ad hoc waivers, that's the preferred approach because of the state law that requires these template ordinances to be implemented.
So I'll tell my colleagues that, you know, the explanation that I'm getting satisfies my issue potentially with this ordinance, because I have a project that specifically in my district that is similar to something that would fall under this, and I've seen the due diligence, I've seen the work that Department of Watershed Management has done to hold developers accountable when there are issues affecting stormwater. So, you know, I am satisfied with the answer that I'm receiving right now, especially knowing that we'll be able to hold Department of Watershed Management accountable for this.
And if I may, I can add to that. When we're talking about encroaching in the 25-foot buffer, we're not talking about encroachment into the floodplain. There's a separate floodplain ordinance that is much stricter than our stream riparian buffer encroachment, which the floodplain ordinance, we don't allow new developments to go into, especially residential. We only allow commercial that is already existing to rebuild on the same foundation only, remodel. But as far as allowing new residential in our floodplain, no. Our floodplain ordinance is one of the very strict ordinances. We've made it stricter every year, every time we've rewritten it to protect people from flooding, and our last thing is to see homes flood. We don't want to ever see that. And so if it's in the floodplain, they're not going to get an encroachment anyway.
I like the one-offs. I like that extra step. That way we make sure that due diligence is happening, which is, because he just said he has one in his district that's happening, and I just like that extra step. I'm okay with that, that process for developers. We're not talking about, like, I like that extra step.
I've got a few questions and comments, and this is a complicated one for me because I've seen ample examples of one size not fitting all when it comes to regulations. Real life gets in the way a lot. Our current stream buffer ordinance is an example of that. You might have situations where 15 feet is enough. You might have situations where it needs to be more than 150 feet. So I've always been a little antsy about just the arbitrary number we came up with. And so I instinctively like the idea of an applicant being able to have a discussion and saying, here's why we think this project is different and requires some surgical relief, that at the end of this discussion, everyone should be comfortable that we're not, adding to flooding and pollutants. On the other hand, I kind of feel like we're being pitched because not saying okay to this will retard affordable housing. And that kind of rubs me the wrong way. I think, everyone should be entitled to seek relief, not just one group, worthy as they are of our time and attention. In my district, the only lots that are left are the problem lots. There's a sewer line. There's a stormwater line. There's a creek. Oh, it's a swale. No, it's a creek. Oh, there's a slope. Oh, there's too many trees. And so I don't know that that's a bad thing, though. There are some lots that I think God just meant not to be developed, lest the entire group suffer. Let me ask you this. This technical panel, is that what was known formerly known as the stream buffer encroachment panel, or words to that effect? Lowell's group?
Essentially, the riparian buffer panel, the technical panel.
And do they allow community input? Because they did not used to.
We do. There's a public comment period where we do solicit comments from the public.
Live? As in live testimony? Or send in an email?
The process is, as the ordinance is written now, is that the panel meeting is open to the public. It's held in the other conference room every 2 weeks on Wednesday afternoons, and the public can attend. But with the actual stream buffer reviews, encroachment reviews, a plan may go in 10 times before it gets to a point that we feel it can meet the requirements of the ordinance. And then it goes to public comment, a period where there's a posting and notification of all the residents in the area. And then it moves forward with those public comments are read and summarized in the technical panel review meeting as you move forward. And it goes to the NPU as well. I did forget that.
Yeah, I think some of the process steps need to be kind of reorganized so that there's less of the kind of heartburn that we all experience now, and then my phone rings off the hook, and then your phone's going to ring off the hook. And I know why y'all do it. It's easy. It's convenient. I've been very frankly told by some of the people involved, please don't saddle us with having to listen to hours and hours and hours of public comment. We're the experts. Let us handle it. There may be 10 changes, as you just pointed out. But meantime, panic has set in. Things get more complicated. They don't get easier. I'm uncomfortable. I've always been uncomfortable with the way that's been done. Now, on the other hand, and I can argue both sides of this probably all day long, I don't want us to be the arbiters of one-offs. We're not qualified any more than I want us to hear BZA cases. Mr. Wan.
All right, I get excited when I get a lawyer up here, so let's get the law guy back up at the podium. No, I'm kidding. So you made a comment about, the preference of wholesaling, changing our code versus one-off variance waivers, exceptions. You need to walk me through that logic a little bit more, because I would imagine that the environmental groups would prefer a tighter regulation and restrictions, and that you're carefully, like we've been talking about, you're carefully vetting and judging the worthiness and the mitigation efforts project by project, versus saying I'm going to relax the whole thing, even though I'm elevating the mitigation strategy. So help me understand that a little bit better.
Sure. So just so you've got a bit of context, Atlanta's riparian buffer ordinance is very unique in amongst our neighbouring jurisdictions. Most of our neighbouring jurisdictions do not have anywhere near as detailed an ordinance as we have. They simply allow a variance to be granted within the 75 or 150-foot buffer, and it's up to the administrative decision maker to make that decision. We have very complex hoops to jump through for various different types of development, and so in that way we differ from the state's template markedly, in that we just don't allow a variance for any reason or for stated reasons. We actually have different types of variances that are allowed based on the particular facts of the case. And so one of the things that we don't want to do is to depart too much from, as I said before, from the state's template version of this ordinance. We already do depart quite significantly, and we are more restrictive than many of our other neighbouring jurisdictions. And so having ad hoc waivers means that the technical panel, which is a panel of experts that have technical expertise in riparian buffer matters, which includes the arborist and somebody from the city planning department, what we don't want to do is attempt to take that out of the hands of that panel if possible, because they're the ones that deal day to day with these particular matters. And that's the danger of having an ad hoc process, where the experts aren't allowed to then look at the application and do it on the basis that they're treating everybody the same. So at the moment, if all the applications come to the panel can consistently apply its logic and processes and methods and means like it does to every other development. When you adopt an ad hoc process, you depart from that completely.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
A couple of things, just wording. I know you could say he just used the word restrictive. Atlanta has the most restrictive laws. I say we have the most protective. I say we're trying to protect our environment. I live in an area where floods just started happening. When my kids go to school, if it rains, their socks are soggy. Their shoes are now destroyed. I think it happened because of some of the building that happened on the north side of the city. When Mr. Shook mentioned that he has no gold, I call it gold. He said there's no place to build. I know I got spaces to build. I think there are other places that developers can come and develop in the city of Atlanta other than, like he said, I believe in God the same way. I think there are places that we aren't supposed to be. I think it's just set up that way. And I believe in public-private partnerships. We are elected officials. When something doesn't get to that panel, it's because the elected officials didn't see. We made a decision based on carrying the voice of the people that sent us here. And so I would like that extra step. I like when a developer calls me about an encroachment or some issues going on so we can see if it's something we can do. But I like the extra step that people are taking. I don't think we should be the body that removes it, particularly today when we're just now getting this stuff. I don't think today is the day we can do that. I don't think today's the day.
I'm not sure where the committee is on this. For discussion purposes, I would be okay with holding this so that we can get we can have further discussion without blowing the rest of the agenda today. And specifically, I want a better understanding of the public input process and the public noticing process. Because while I do think any applicant has the right to say, well, I understand why you wrote this, but in this case, here's why we're worthy of some relief here. I'm fine with that, provided that the community has, that it's an easier, more clearly laid out path for public input, because everyone lives downstream. Comments? I'll make a motion to hold. Mr. Lewis has seconded it. All right, let's vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, item will be held for more consideration. That takes us to resolutions. Before we get there, has there been any kind of a meeting of the minds on the issue that we sidelined earlier?
So I conferred with the CPO, and I think our ask would be for consideration to extend for 1 year. And we'll work with the Department of Procurement to initiate a sole source for AT&T that will be under our purview. So it's a contract under the city's purview, separate from the state contract, if you're agreeable to that.
Okay, so if that's acceptable, then the motion would be that we have a substitute prepared for us to take up on Monday that achieves that end.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make that motion or second or whatever. Yeah. I do have a question though. But it would still preserve the ability. Again, I don't want to tie your hands. It would still preserve the opportunity to continue exercising. You'd still have 2 more option years left, so you could conceivably keep going with this one for 3 years, all the while pursuing the RFP for a sole source. Right. I want to give you all as much flexibility as possible. Again, it wasn't about the scope, it was just about the form.
So my understanding is we wouldn't if we elect to change, deviate from. But I think it's achievable. We'll 1 year, and within that year, we surely should be able to
And then,
initiate on a separate contract.
and I would imagine that we could, with a sole source, go as long as 5 years. So,
Yes.
okay, gotcha. All right, thank you.
Anything else? All right, if not, motion's been made and seconded. Let's vote.
Mr. Chair, is this approved on condition?
Yeah, approval on condition of receiving the appropriate substitute for Monday.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. Thank you for working this out. That takes us to Resolution 22R 4266. This is a resolution by utilities authorizing the mayor or his designee.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
item number 8, please.
Excellent. That would be 22R 4252, a resolution by Mr. Hillis, requesting the mayor or his designee to evaluate and update the list of city arterial streets, city connector streets, and state route streets within the City of Atlanta Public Right-of-Way Manual to request the Atlanta Department of Transportation and the Department of Public Works coordinate these efforts, which include updating street names, limits of streets, mileage of streets, and street classifications that may need to occur due to growth and increased traffic that has occurred since the last update, to request this occur by December 31 of 22, and to request the Public Works Department to utilize the updated list in regards to right-of-way maintenance scheduling beginning January of next year and for other purposes. And who's presenting?
Good morning, Chairman Shook and committee members. I've been in discussion with the Commissioner of the Department of Transportation. Much of this work will fall on the Department of Transportation. We're prepared to assist in any way, and once the document is completed, we will use the updated street guide for the purpose of handling street right-of-way maintenance.
Well, you're right, and I'm sorry, you're probably the second most qualified person to stand up here and answer these questions. So I want to be sure I'm right about this. What this resolution does not do is ask for you and transportation to work together to come up with a proposed list of changes that comes back to us. It authorizes you to go ahead and make this plethora of changes.
Yes, sir. As I understand it, yes. And I believe the catalyst behind this request from Councilmember Hillis was as he looked at the street guide, he realized that some of the streets no longer exist or the names have changed, and therefore the length of that road segment had changed. So he's just simply asking that that list be updated to reflect the current street names
and
lanes.
If all this did was clean up those kinds of things, I would be fine with it. But we are talking about reclassifying streets?
You know, so I'm not exactly sure if that would reclassify the road as an arterial or a collector street. That typically would occur, from my experience, when the street counts, the traffic counts change on a road, or if the width of the road change. As you mentioned, I am the second most qualified person to make that decision. But should that occur, we're prepared to engage the Department of Planning as well, because it would have an impact on the comprehensive plan also.
And then what about imposing or modifying different or new speed limits?
You know, again, I'm the second most qualified, but considering that the Department of Transportation has an initiative to regulate all streets at a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, I don't see that having a significant impact.
We've got a pretty good representation of the district community representatives here. We're talking about changes that are, that the surrounding community could be extremely sensitive to. The relevant department head is not even here to answer our questions. I have no interest in doing anything other than holding this at this time. Questions or comments? My motion is to hold. Mr. Wan has seconded that. If there's, Mr. Lewis, you okay? You seeking recognition, or you okay with holding? I thought you were willing to speak. Okay, let's open the vote. Thank you.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. Now we're at 22R4266, resolution by utilities authorizing mayor or his designee to enter into an IGA with South Fulton, Georgia, on behalf of Watershed for the purpose of providing construction services relating to the City of South Fulton's intersection improvement project, OSI 613, OSI 615, Old Fairburn Road at Union Road, and Old Fairburn Road at Stonewall Tell Road in an amount not to exceed $44,675.29. All contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. Commissioner.
Good morning. Makita Browning, Watershed Management. The purpose of this legislation is to request the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of South Fulton to appropriate funds in an amount not to exceed $44,675.29 for construction services relating City of South Fulton's intersection improvement projects, Old Fairburn Road and Stonewall Tell Roads at Union Road intersections, respectively. City of South Fulton sponsored an intersection improvement project at those intersections. It's essentially two projects that will be combined into one intersection improvement project. Department of Watershed Management has existing facilities that present a utility conflict for the project. The scope of work will consist of the relocating, removing, abandoning, adjusting of 20 linear feet of 3/4 inch water main, 7 water valves and boxes, 7 fire hydrants, and 5 water meters and boxes and other appurtenances. DWM scope will include City of South Fulton work, so this will be more efficient to expedite construction, minimize disruptions, reduce traffic and safety concerns, and limit the city's liability to contractor delays. So therefore, this legislation is requesting that the mayor enter into an IGA. Subject to your questions.
Motion to approve by Juan. I will second. If there's nothing else, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed.
Right, the ayes have it. 22R4267 is a resolution by utilities authorizing mayor or his designee to execute the first renewal to the agreement indicated annual contract for painting and pressure washing services with A&D Painting, Inc. on behalf of Watershed in an amount not to exceed $75,000. All contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. Mr. Fletcher.
Good morning, Councilman Shook. Good morning, council members. Quentin Fletcher, Department of Watershed Management. The purpose of this resolution is to exercise the first renewal to agreement FC 10649, annual contract for painting and pressure washing services in the amount not to exceed $75,000. The terms of the agreement was for 3 years, with 2 one-year renewals to be exercised at the sole discretion of the city. The City of Atlanta Department of Watershed Management is responsible for pressure washing, cleaning tanks, painting at the various water and wastewater treatment facilities for the Office of Water Treatment and Reclamation. The city has performed services utilizing this contract to improve the aesthetics of the water treatment and wastewater reclamation facilities since 2019. The Department of Watershed Management established strategic plan SP 2022 with various priorities including infrastructure reliability, operator efficiency, and compliance. This contract assists with meeting those priorities and performing critical maintenance improvements for the water and wastewater treatment facilities. The vendor has been doing work for the city for years and has agreed to hold the current prices listed in the contract. Subject to your questions, that concludes my briefing.
Motion to approve by Juan, second by Winston. If there's something else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. We have dispensed with 11. That takes us to 12, which is 22R4330, resolution by utilities authorizing the mayor to enter into a grant agreement, the number of which is indicated, for major repairs with the Nehemiah Project Community Development Corp. To provide plumbing assistance to low and moderate income water and wastewater customers for the Care and Conserve Plumbing Repair Program on behalf of Watershed in an amount not to exceed $3 million. Ms. Williams.
Good morning, Council. Jonathan Williams here, Office of Watershed. The purpose of the legislation is to enter into a grant agreement, major repairs and restoration with the Nehemiah Project Community Development Corporation on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for the purpose of administering the Care and Conserve Plumbing Program, Repair Program, grant in an amount not to exceed $3 million and no cents over the course of 18 months. Care and Conserve Plumbing Assistance Program serves low customers, single-family detached residences in need of household plumbing repairs and infrastructure spill restoration. This was put out for bid. We received one respondent. They were scored consistent with the guidance as provided by procurement. I can provide you the score if you like.
Ms. Wood.
Yes.
I would like to just commend this project. You all have helped so many of our seniors over the past years with this project. So I hope that we will not delay this project, and I'd like to move approval.
Second by Winston. I do have a question. Please refresh us. Is the sole funding source revenue from cell towers, or are there other
sources?
Revenue streams?
There are other revenue streams,
Right.
yes.
Thank you. If there's nothing else. Oh, Mr. Warren.
Real quick question. So basically now that we've, once it's approved, we're transferring this fund over there, but then the Nehemiah project receives applications and evaluates opportunities to be able to dispense the money appropriately, right?
Yes, and we still provide oversight.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right. The ayes have it. No held papers, correct? No held papers today.
No, Mr. Chair.
Now, that takes us to the 3 walk-ins that this committee very generously agreed to put on the agenda. I will read the caption, the first of which is, it's styled Elms 30890, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the Third Amendment to the agreement indicated here, which is an emergency right-of-way maintenance with Russell Landscape, LLC, on behalf of Public Works, to add funding for continued right-of-way maintenance services in an amount not to exceed $1,500,000, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, etc. I'll tell you what, before describing this individual paper, we're going to need an overview of how these have come to be walk-ins.
Good morning again, Chairman Shook and committee members. Al Wiggins, Commissioner of Public Works. Thank you for entertaining this walk-in legislation. The reason for this off-cycle request is for a few reasons. One is that the extent and level of maintenance has increased under the mayor's desire to improve the overall appearance of the city through Operation Clean Sweep. So we have received additional requests to do work that we would not have normally done under our scheduled maintenance, in addition to the work that's being performed under Operation Clean Sweep. We have received an uptick in requests to perform maintenance in areas outside of our normally scheduled mowing maintenance areas. So ordinarily we would have been able to track the spending, but because the demand has increased, we weren't able to adequately project the increase in costs.
Ms. Booth.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Have you all been in touch with Sheriff Labatt regarding getting some additional help with the delittering and some of the things that he should be able to assist us with?
No, ma'am, not in recent times. It certainly is our intentions after our discussions to speak with him. We have been in contact with Chief Dancy.
We need to do that. We need to do that. We really do need to meet with him. Please.
Describe for us the definition of emergency right-of-way maintenance. In other words, under what circumstances would this contract be activated?
So, although it's titled emergency right-of-way maintenance, it was procured under emergency circumstances during the time where we were really struggling with staffing and equipment as well. But the nature of this request is for us to be able to continue the work that we're performing. As you may recall, we've increased the frequency of maintenance this year with the strategy of maintaining our arterial roads twice a month and our collector streets once a month, and our local roads upon a complaint basis only. And we've received an uptick in those complaints, as we have discussed also in previous meetings. We are also working with the Georgia Department of Transportation and maintaining areas that technically fall under their purview, but their maintenance schedule is far less than that meets the standards of the city of Atlanta. So there are a few factors that have impacted the increase in cost of right-of-way maintenance.
Well, and who declares that we have an emergency, and so get company XYZ on the phone and get them out there?
So, again, the emergency was because the lack of resources. We recently hired a procurement manager.
So are we still in a state of emergency regarding this?
We're in a state of emergency as it relates to the availability of staff and the equipment to cover the increase in maintenance. So to be able to meet the demand, we're working with our procurement manager that just came in, that was, hired last week. We're working with the Department of Procurement to come up with a long-term solution. But Chairmanship, yes, to answer your question, currently we are in a state of emergency as it relates to being able to maintain the demand that is required to mow and delitter our right-of-ways.
And is this extra funding, is this accounted for in the budget for this purpose?
It was not specifically accounted for in this purpose, but we are able to use other line items to cover the additional costs. I would also like to mention that we're working with the Department of Transportation. We are actually handling work that typically fell under their purview, and so we are asking that funding from their budget be transferred over to the Department of Public Works, or for us to use funding under their current budget to cover the cost of the maintenance as well.
All right, and we may not get this answer today, but I would like to see, what we're taking from the left hand so that the right hand can do what we want it to do, because the money's coming from somewhere. Last question. When you say expanded, maintenance responsibilities, are you talking about performing work on property owned by other public entities?
So there is a fraction of that being done. As you probably recall, we have about 60 miles of state right-of-way that goes through the city. Again, their maintenance schedule is their maintenance schedule. We cannot require them to increase the level of maintenance. However, it falls far below our standards. And so we have maintained some of the state right-of-way areas. I would also like to mention there are state right-of-ways, and there are areas that are owned by MARTA that the city has agreed through legislation to maintain some of those areas as well. So again, it ultimately falls under our responsibility to maintain those areas.
And I understand that. I do have to wonder, though, why these entities would spend any of their own money, given they know they have us over a barrel, and at the end of the day, we'll do it.
Well, and that's a great question, but their maintenance schedule, for an example, I believe their mowing schedule is probably once a quarter, and of course, that would not suffice for our
It's insufficient, but again, I guess they've just got us here. Mr. Wan and then Ms. Boone.
I wanted to ask about the source of funding as well. If I'm reading this correctly, it's coming from closure and post-closure care?
I don't recall that. I do have our finance manager in the room to verify that, if the funding was covered through post-closure care.
Good morning, Melissa Davis, Director of Finance and Accounting for the Department of Public Works. The department will actually have an amendment, and we're going to use the $20 million, a portion of the $20 million in the general fund for these special services.
That's what was going to be my following question. I felt like that would be a more appropriate. So I'll make a motion to approve on condition of that substitute or the amendment on Monday that changes the funding source out.
Right. So we are in the process of working with the Department of Finance to build the new department org. So we will be coming before the council again for approval of those new department orgs for Department of Public Works. Thanks. Thank you.
So let me ask this: is it the same funding mechanism proposed for the following two papers?
No, this is the next two papers are for solid waste functions. And Chairman Shook, I would also like to add the Department of Public Works recently submitted a trigger package to the Department of Procurement to begin the cost and efficiency study. And so this will be able to address the right sizing of staffing and the budget that's allocated to perform right-of-way maintenance as well.
I mean, maybe we should sue these agencies. Maybe we should sue these agencies. Why are we're not a volunteer organization here.
I understand. I'm not sure what the appropriate response is for that, but
that's fine. I'm just thinking out loud. As you know, it's been a long time sore point for me. We have so many needs, and we spend a lot of money on things that others should be doing.
And I'm not sure if this, satisfies your question, Chairmanship, but I will tell you, I've been in local government for 20 years, and I've worked in other jurisdictions that surround the city of Atlanta, and I've experienced the same issues, and the end result is that the local municipality will go in and maintain those areas that are owned by the state, unfortunately.
Yes, Commissioner, thank you all so much. My issue is the quality of work. Here we are again, $1,500,000 and the quality. If you get in your car and you drive down M.L. King Jr. Drive from Peyton Road to Fulton Industrial Boulevard, I don't even bother to call now because I don't even think they know what to do. So I want to publicly say the quality is bothering the citizens in Atlanta. The medians along M.L. King, some of the right-of-ways, it's almost like they can't handle the job. So I know one of my other colleagues brought this to your attention. This is troubling to me. This is troubling that the medians are not properly kept. We can't even get a schedule. I mean, I know you all have to be tired of hearing from me.
Yes.
Text messages, emails, calls, the quality of work is not good.
And we share the same concern, Councilmember Boone, and what we have done recently is we've hired 2 quality insurance inspectors. We were approved for 2, and in the most recent personnel paper, we requested 4 additional quality assurance inspectors.
Excuse me, sir, we got to inspect the contractors? We got to use our staff to go inspect the contractors?
If we want to ensure the quality of work,
y'all need to have an internal meeting, because I don't think taxpayers are happy with this. You can get in your car. The quality of work is not good.
Ms. Lewis.
Being what she said, the quality not being good, it's hard to enter into this contract again with the same folks. We're hiring, we're spending our resources. I know we always want to expand our staff and grow in different ways. I don't know if we should be hiring quality checkers with our funding.
well, and I understand the concern. We have about 1,300 miles of right-of-way throughout the city, and we maintain each side of the road. That's 2,600 miles. That's the equivalent of traveling from here to San Francisco. And so in an ideal world, the contractors will perform as expected. I think, as I mentioned previously, we develop an app with a scorecard that will score the performance of the work that's being performed by the contractors. But we can't simply rely on contractors doing the right thing. With every process, there has to be some quality assurance. And so we're just simply auditing the work that they're performing, not standing behind them or performing over-the-shoulder supervision, but we're performing an audit of the work that's being done.
And my thing is, I would rather you expand your staff and we no longer need that contract. I can just think of things we can do with $1 million when we're trying to hire new people in the Department of Public Works. Quality. I know you're taking folks into your department, you're training them, we're spending hours training folks, but if we're contracting out folks that we got to hire folks to watch, and we're talking about $1 million?
Yes, sir. Well, and that's a valid concern as well, sir, and that is a big part of the cost and efficiency study. We want to understand how we can deliver the best services at a lesser cost, and so it may be that if we perform the services in-house, that we could do it at a cheaper rate. Our preliminary studies show otherwise, but as we do a deeper dive, we may see ways that we could perform or increase the level of service through full-time equivalent.
And I would say we would be judged as a city based on how we provide public services to people, and people just want to see it looking a little better when they get off the highway. And if we're saying it's not even our workers, not our folks, it's folks we've already given a contract to, and I don't see my council member act the way she just acted. She upset the way she's upset, and she's rightfully so, because she's driving these communities with her daddy name on the street, and it's just not clean. And so I would like to re-examine the contracts, or we can talk to folks about us hiring folks. I like seeing new young folks getting jobs with the city of Atlanta. So let's see if we can look at that route.
Yes, sir. Understood.
We have a second on the motion to... we need a second. The motion is to send it forward on the condition of receiving a substitute.
You need this right now.
And in order for us to continue right-of-way maintenance, yes, sir.
Okay. Second by Ms. Lewis. If there's something else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it with one nay. That takes us to Elms 3089-1 resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the third amendment to the agreement with for right-of-way maintenance with Russell. No, that's the. Need to turn the page. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the second amendment for emergency procurement agreement, which is indicated here. Yard trimmings collection services with Ed Castro Landscape, Inc. on behalf of Public Works in an amount not to exceed $640,000. All contracted work being charged when paid from, et cetera. Commissioner.
Yes, sir. We initially began this contract when we were experiencing challenges with our staffing as well as our equipment. Currently, about a third of our solid waste vehicles have exceeded the expected life cycle. And so our primary focus has been to ensure that solid waste is removed from the curbside. As we focused on removing solid waste as our primary focus, we contracted the work of yard debris removal. Since the initial contract, since we initially entered into the contract, we have purchased 5 rear-loaded vehicles, and we're scheduled to receive 5 additional trucks. We've improved our staffing position. However, as we wait for the 5 additional trucks, there is still some fragility in our operation, and we're concerned with our ability to remove yard waste as we go into the fall season. And so this request is to simply add additional funding so we could keep up with the pace of the collection of yard debris during the fall season.
Mr. Wan.
Thank you. Commissioner, how are we charged on this? Is it per week? Do they invoice us on a monthly basis? How does that work?
So I believe this is an hourly rate contract, if I recall correctly. Per crew? Okay. Per crew basis.
Okay, so per group, per week, essentially?
So per crew, per day, actually.
Okay, oh, per day, yeah, all right. Yeah, I guess, so while we are authorizing a not-to-exceed amount, as you just described, as the vehicles we receive the next 5, we could conceivably expect this to taper off as you are able to then kind of bring all your folks and equipment on board to replace that.
Number one, that is our hope as we are able to bring on additional vehicles so we can actually deploy crews out to perform the work. But we're also concerned, as again, we're approaching the flu season, we're approaching the holiday season, and our approach is we would rather have it and not need it as opposed to the opposite. So we do have a plan to really address.
Gotcha. I mean, I'll echo something that Councilmember Lewis said. I mean, we're this coupled with the next paper, we're essentially allocating another $1.28 million for this when we really should be doing it in-house. And we should, and I understand the reasons why we're not, but I think to the extent that we can aggressively build up that capacity and not end up relying on these outside contracts to do the work that we need to, I think that's in everybody's best interest. But I'm supportive of both in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are the repercussions or the ramifications for a contractor not performing up to the standard that we expect from them, or missing services or negligence on their end?
So typically, there's language written in a contract that addresses performance. The majority of our contracts have a clause that the city could separate from the agreement based on performance. I don't want to speak as an attorney. Ms. Grant is here, but the language is typically 30 to 60 days that we're able to sever the agreement with a contractor.
Do you know if there's anything in that contract that stipulates a refund or anything monetary in return back to the city if the level of service is not up to par?
There aren't any monetary clawbacks in a contract, but we are able to part ways with the vendor.
Thank you.
And my hope is that next year we don't need the contract. My hope is that we are where we are today. We are where we are on Monday when stuff passes City Hall or doesn't pass City Hall. But this time next year, we're talking about Commissioner Wiggins' staff grew by 25% because now we're managing our city, which is what we should be doing as a city we are.
Yes, sir. Understood.
So is this constitute another ongoing emergency?
It is currently an emergency, yes.
Is the city picking up any of this, or have we contracted all of that out?
So yes, we are still collecting yard debris, but we have deployed the contractors in areas where we experience a high volume of yard debris disposal, typically in certain segments of town. So yes, we're still collecting yard debris.
If you had all these 5 trucks this afternoon, would you have the crews for them?
But we don't currently have the crews. We'll have the crews as we receive the additional equipment. So essentially, if we hired the crews today and we're expecting the vehicle to arrive in 6 months, we would not have the equipment to utilize the employees.
And how are we going to overcome the staffing gap?
So we would just simply hire. The environmental service worker positions are a little bit easier to recruit. The typical crew for a rear loader truck is a 3-person crew, 2 collectors and 1 driver. So with the 5 trucks, there would be 10 environmental service workers and 5 drivers. So again, if we were to hire those employees today, it would essentially not have a vehicle to operate.
Is that a high turnover occupation?
It is.
So we'll be losing people and gaining people at the same time.
Yes, sir. Through attrition, we typically increase our staffing by 20% to cover the high turnover rate. But again, my concern with bringing on those employees today is that we would not be able to use them in the most efficient manner.
Well, we've got a motion, correct? And was there, motion by Juan. Do we have a second? Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Winston, and then I've got a closing comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in support of this, and I'll second the motion, Mr. Chair. I did want to articulate one other concern that I had just based around the pay per day for a crew. You know, if a crew misses a pickup or on a street and we have to call them back out, are we having to pay for that crew to come back out a second time for missed services?
No, so by being a crew is typically performance-based. So if we receive a call that a crew has missed a particular address, we will call them out and they will retrieve those items at no additional charge.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
The ayes have it. That takes us, just like that, to our final paper. Elms 308902, resolution authorizing the mayor as designee to execute the Second Amendment to Emergency Procurement Agreement, which is indicated here, yard trimmings collection services with Russell Landscape LLC on behalf of Public Works to add funding in an amount not to exceed $640,000 while contract work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. Commissioner.
Yes, sir, Chairman. So this legislation mirrors the previous legislation for the same purposes. We're simply trying to supplant our staff through contractual services.
There's been a motion to approve and a proper second. I'll have one comment, but let's get this vote done.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. Does that conclude our business for today?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. No, we didn't take that in at the administration's request, thankfully. I will join my colleagues in expressing enthusiasm and support for you to be able to ramp up, get the people you need, bring them in-house. We need to take better care of them. That's maybe we'll slow down the attrition rate. Be nice if this pandemic went away. It makes me nervous feeling that we are institutionalizing these emergencies. And it's been a rough week of reading the news as we've been reminded of all the emergency contracts that have just put such a cloud over this city lately. So that's my final comment. Anything else? Any comments for the good of the order? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you.